Good evening. It is Thursday, January 19th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. and we are at the District Service Center in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. We'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the land of the Minnewacan Dakota people. Minnewacan means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Our first item on the agenda is our roll call. Dana, will you call the roll?
Eric Chesmer. Louise Hines. Here. Pat Driscoll is absent. Melinda Doles.
Here.
Katie Schwartz. Here. Simi Petnaik.
Here.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Felipe Patino.
Here.
Eden Hardy.
Here.
Next on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is 3.0, and that is the approval of our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Melinda and seconded by Katie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Next item on our agenda is 4.0, and that is our student district ambassadors, and that will be presented this evening by our superintendent, Julie Nielsen.
Thank you. I don't know what it is about kids, but just having kids at a board meeting just makes it a little bit brighter. And students, I will tell you that when I spoke with board members today as we reviewed the agenda, I was so excited to tell them we had students here with us today. We have a high school student, Felipe Patino, here with us, Eastridge High School junior, as well as Eden Hardy, and Eden comes to us from Lake Middle School. And so in preparation for this evening, they were asked to share. We actually had a meeting today, and thank goodness there was no snow day. They were very excited that they were able to be here. In preparation for this evening, I just ask that they think about and reflect on what we worked on today as ambassadors. A reminder that our district ambassadors has a representative from all of our schools, elementary, middle, and high school, so it's a nice big group that fills the boardroom. And then I also asked them to reflect a little bit on the work that they're doing at their school level. So something that we're really working on is a student ambassador group at all of our schools, elementary, middle, and high school, and then one representative from those schools comes to a district meeting, and we go back and forth with information. And so I'm going to have Felipe start us off this evening. I may be that old, but I remember when Felipe joined our school district, and was it kindergarten?
It was first grade.
It was first grade, and Felipe happens to be a triplet, and he would say he's in a household with girls, so he has two sisters and himself, and he has really held up strong. And I am excited to have him here and to have him share just a little bit about our work here as district ambassadors, but also the exciting things that they're doing at Eastridge High School. So Felipe, we'll have you start.
Hi, I'm Felipe, and I'm very excited to be here. Some of the things that we talked about today in our meeting was the value of relationships, and not only in your life, but at school. A common theme that I saw was family, your siblings, your parents, cousins, even pets, and friends. And I think that more specifically in our schools, it's really important to find a good group of friends, because those people are the people that are going to inspire you and influence you to do everything that you do every single day. So even for me, what I talked about was the group of friends that I found my freshman year, even though my freshman year was really, really awkward since, we had COVID-19 happen. But I think that I found a really strong group of friends that always supports me in everything that I do, and I just am so glad and happy to have them with me every day. So yeah. And at school, our student ambassador group is really focused on leadership skills and just what you can do to provide your school with a good place that they can actually call their school. And I decided to join Student Ambassadors, Key Club, NHS, Student Council, and more clubs to, kind of have that role at my school. How can I make a change at my school? And we do a lot of voluntary stuff over there and just things for new kids to feel comfortable at our schools. And me and 3 other friends decided to come up with a club, and we named it Close the Gap. And it is a club that is catered towards, at first, POC needs, like academic needs, what they need to be successful. Because we found in research is that people of color didn't get the educational need that they want. Okay, so grades for most people of color were lower than Caucasians, and we wanted to make a change. So we created Close the Gap, and we provide our students with meetings every other Monday at school where we get around together, hold meetings, and have just a really good group of just students, because the club is run by the students for the students. So you really get an environment that you don't get anywhere else at Eastridge, because it's all run by the teachers. So I think students feel really comfortable in this really inclusive environment, and just because it's made for people of color doesn't mean that only people of color can join. We have people from every single race, even Caucasian people. So it's a very good group of friends and students and just members. And we give opportunities to them, as I said. And one of them was this last October, we took a field trip to the NatCat College Fair, since, we're all getting old. We're juniors and seniors and sophomores. So we're old. So we got an opportunity to really see what our future is going to look like. So I'm really happy to call myself, a co-founder of that group, because it makes me proud of everything that I've done to make my school a better place.
Thank you, Felipe. And we'll have board questions after Eden gets done. But next we have Eden Hardy from Lake Middle School. And Eden is not a new face. Eden is one of 2 or 3 ambassadors that are repeaters. So Eden got to join us for a second year this year, coming from Lake Middle School. And so I know Eden has a lot to share about what's happening at the school, as well as her experience today.
So today at the the district student ambassador meeting, we talked a lot about relationships, as Felipe said, and we wrote kind of like an essay about an important relationship that we have with a friend or a family member or someone, and that was very interesting to hear other people's stories or who they thought they had a good relationship with, and people said friends, like I said friends, and I think a main thing was friends at school, because your friends are the ones that help you kind of get through stuff that's hard at school, so that was interesting. And at my school, we've been focusing a lot on computers being broken, and we've also been focusing on passing time, because there's a lot of problems with kids like skipping class in the bathroom, but there's also problems with kids not getting enough passing time. So we kind of tried to figure out a way to balance that, and I think we're still working on that a bit. And at my school, we also had the honor of having Governor Walz at our school, so that was really cool. He talked a bit about what successful school districts do, and they said they had less homework, which is a relief. And that was really interesting to hear, like what he had to say from such a high perspective. And it was really interesting to have him at our school, and it was very much an honor.
And Eden was one of the student leaders, so she got to open the session with the governor. What would you say about the buzz in the school that day? What was it like with the students?
It was
Little excitement?
Yeah, it was a lot of excitement. Some people were like, how come you get to meet the governor? Honestly, I don't know, but
And many of us were there, and the kids were, like Eden said, skipping class out in the hallway, taking a look at who was with the entourage, with the governor, and who was the security detail, and a lot of faces up against the window, watching as we, of course, recognized Lake Middle School as a blue ribbon school, one of the only middle schools. So congratulations to Lake. But with that, board members, I would offer up if you have any questions for either Felipe or for Eden.
I just have a question for Eden. Did the governor give you one of those little coins?
no, he didn't.
Didn't?
Yeah.
I'll make that happen.
I just have a question. Felipe and Eden, if you'd be gracious enough to tell us a little bit about some of the activities and other things that you enjoy doing.
You want me to start? So do you mean like in school or out of school? So in school, like I said, I love being a part of my community. So with that being said, like I said, I volunteer in most occasions that I can. So whether it be candy grams at school or feed my starving children, or even like at hospitals or food drives, things like that. I also like to play soccer with my friends and, go to the gym, work out, just mainly, have that high school experience. You get all your homework done during the week, study hard, then in the weekend, you go hang out with your friends. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really that much of an interesting guy. I'm more of a normal guy, just hang around with the family, with my dog, take him on walks. But yeah, it's mostly just a balanced life for me, at least. I don't know about Eden. But yeah, to say.
I like to dance a lot. I dance every day. I actually am missing dance right now. um, but in school, I like to do math because I'm always talking with my friends in math class. um, and I just like to socialize because of dance, I don't get a lot of time to socialize outside of school. So it's nice to always be able to talk to my friends at school because that's the main place I get to talk to them and be comfortable.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I had a question for both of you. So this is like the first school year back where we've been normal, right? And the first school year you guys have had for a long time where there's been no COVID precautions, no masking, no weird schedules or anything like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how your transition from the last couple of years to this year has been, and if there's anything you've learned about how we should think about how schools should run based on how, kind of what you've been seeing?
So at first, I think that one of the most crucial things that students had was teachers being really relaxed on things. So let's say, during COVID, a student turned in an assignment 2 weeks late, no big deal. But now, obviously, teachers are going to be like, hey, that's 14 days late. You can't be doing that. So I think students had struggle with the transition of having a really relaxed setting to now having a more like normal setting in high school. And at least for me, and not only that, just like having like that normal high school experience is really nice because, you get to actually experience, every day going into passing time, going into your 6 classes, not, going in an A and B day, 3 classes a day. And I think that students will just have to get used to it because, that's how it is. But in the schools, teachers have been doing a really good job of allowing retakes on tests, which has been really good. And I've talked with my administration as well, because I'm also a part of their cabinet, about retake and retake policy. And I think teachers have like kind of cooled down on that, which is way better for the students' like mental health, because I think that now in today's society, that's one of the biggest struggles that students have to overcome, especially with these stressful school years that we've had in the past. So I think that one of the best things that you guys are doing as a whole is with that retake policy. And yeah, I think, to be honest, school now in the second trimester of East Ridge, it's going really, really swell, and I think that things are flowing very nice.
For me, I really enjoyed coming back to school because I feel like when you're online, you just don't get that kind of connection that you usually do when you actually go to school. You get to see your friends, and like if you need to ask a question, it's easier. And I really enjoyed that because I'm a person that asks a lot of questions, just to be clear. And that was really nice to be able to ask people questions. But it kind of felt like I went from elementary to I didn't really have a 5th grade year that was solid. Mm-hmm. So I basically went from 4th grade to 6th grade, and that was kind of weird. But it was really nice to be back, and it was just also some adjusting just from COVID or from elementary into middle school even. It's just a big transition. So it was kind of a lot to just take in. So my 6th grade year was kind of rough, but now that I'm in 7th grade, I feel a lot better because last year was kind of I think last year was a bit more normal. We were going in person, but we were still masking. So it was nice to feel more comfortable with the idea of middle school.
Any others? Well, Eden and Felipe, it is a pleasure to have you, and I look forward for you to continue to come and address the board and give us your updates and how your experiences are going. And remember, building relationships are important. They're key to your success in life. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to stay if you want, or you can go to
Yes,
dance
Felipe has his homework all done. He said he was staying.
Okay.
We were telling the students today that they get to be on TV. They thought that was real cool. So when you look up there, students there, that's what's broadcasting live.
Yep, all your friends can see. You can tell them. Okay, the next item on our agenda is 5.0, and that is our comments to the board. At this time, individuals may speak to the school board on any item relating to South Washington County Schools. The board will not respond to or discuss your comments. Character abuse or specific complaints identifying staff, students, or task force members will not be permitted. The superintendent may be asked to prepare a response to your concerns. Speakers are permitted to speak for up to 3 minutes in total. At 3 minutes, the microphones will be turned off and we will move on to the next agenda item. Tonight, we have one person sign up to speak during public comment, and that is Kelly Carlson. Don't know what that was. Oh. All righty. Next is 6.0 consent agenda items that will be presented tonight by Simi Pecknett.
All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Prior to this meeting, board members have had the opportunity to review each of these items and may request that any item be moved to the action items for individual consideration. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All right. Motion by Louise, seconded by Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. And then one of the things on here is a list of all the people who have generously donated to South Washington County Schools in December. And it's listed in item 6.5. We'd like to thank our community for their generosity, and we will be displaying their names on the screen at the end of our board meeting. So if you see these donors in our community, please thank them.
Thank you, Simi. Next is 7.0, which is our information items, and we have none this evening. So we will move on to 8.0, action items. 8.1 is our 21-22 Comprehensive Financial, Special Purpose, and Management Report that will be given by our Director of Finance and Operations, Dan Pine.
Good evening, Chair Van Leer, members of the school board, student ambassadors, Superintendent Nielsen. Tonight we're here to present the audit report for the fiscal year 21-22. When Superintendent Nielsen talked about the meeting being brightened, I thought she meant because of the presence of our auditor.
Yes, I actually did. I forgot that part.
Anyway, so Aaron Nielsen, he's a principal with MMKR, the firm that audited our financial statements. Will present information relating to the annual audit of our financial statements. The district once again received an unmodified or clean opinion. The full sets of the financial statements are attached to the agenda. We will apply for the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting again. That's presented by the ASBO, the Association of School Business Officials International. Last year we received that award for the 16th year in a row. With that, I will have Aaron present some of the findings of the audit, summary of the audit. And so Aaron's an auditor. I'm just a lowly bean counter. I'm not gonna say Aaron's job isn't boring, but when his wife can't sleep at night, she turns to him and says, "Aaron, tell me about your day."
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. As mentioned, my name is Aaron Nielsen. I'm with the independent accounting firm of MMKR, and I'm here to present the results of our audit for the year ended June 30th, 2022. So we put together a PowerPoint presentation to just walk us through the results of our audit for this past year. As mentioned, you have 3 reports before you this evening: the annual comprehensive financial report, the special purpose report, and the management report. So there really won't be any surprises in the PowerPoint presentation. I just grabbed some of the graphs and the information that are included in the documents, and specifically that management report. So with that, I'll make my way through our presentation and get right to it. Our responsibility as auditors, independent of the district, is to provide the opinion on the financial statement. And as mentioned, we have issued what is known as an unmodified or a clean opinion on the basic financial statements, that they're fairly presented as of June 30th, 2022, and for the year then ended, the results of the operations. You may have noticed in the opinion we have an additional paragraph this year for the implementation of a new governmental accounting standards board, statement number 87, which was a change in how leases are presented within your financial statements. So some additional work going into it by your staff and into the financial statements to implement that standard this past year. With regard to internal control and compliance for the financial statement audit required under government auditing standards, that is required by state statute to have your audit under government auditing standards, as well as required because you receive in excess of the $750,000 threshold of federal awards. So you get the additional single audit requirements, which require that. And we're pleased to report that you had no material weaknesses or instances of non-compliance that we were required to share with you this evening. This past year, the state did allow an extension for the federal award audits to coincide with the state's deadline, to coincide with when the federal audit allows your report to be issued for the CFA, the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. So we're working with the district to ensure you'll meet that deadline of March 31st for the federal audit, but we're still working through that process. The Minnesota Legal Compliance Audit component I've included here, there are actually 7 broad categories, and within each of those there's many compliance requirements to follow that we must test as part of the audit. And we had just one comment to share with you this evening with regard to some contract language that should be included in the contract that we found was missing. So Not aware of any concerns it caused, but just some language to make sure it's incorporated into that contract language. With that, I'll start moving through some of the information that's included, some historical trends. We've got a table before you with adjusted ADM, or average daily membership, the resulting pupil units, so showing the number of students that you're serving this past year. I've noted in my copy here this with, obviously this district saw a decrease in 2021 with the pandemic and changes with that. This past year, you actually had an increase of about 71 ADM, or that adjusted average daily membership. Moving on to the next slide, we look at your general fund financial position over the past 10 years. And to do that, we grab a snapshot as of June 30th for each of the past 10 years with cash and investments, net of borrowing, unrestricted fund balance, and then expenditures to show kind of the size of the operation with growth in the size of expenditures due to inflation and the number of students you're serving. You can see how that has changed over time this for the period we're showing here. Looking at the general fund a little deeper with the financial position and the fund balance for the general fund, we reported that the district saw an improved financial position at the end of 2022 with an increase in fund balance. As you can see here, the unrestricted fund balance and the unassigned fund balance each reported an increase in those percentages. So that unrestricted, we're capturing all the components under that unrestricted category there of committed, assigned, and unassigned, while that unassigned obviously is just that portion of unassigned fund balance. I did want to point out, I know the district adopted a new fund balance policy this past year. The district's policy is get to a goal of 16.6% of unrestricted fund balance, or unrestricted expenditures, by the close of the June 30th, 2026 year. The district's calculation under that fund balance policy for the district ended the current year at 10.2%. So the difference you're seeing with this table here compared to that 10.2% is really backing off those restricted related expenditures, long-term facilities maintenance or operating capital expenditures, where there's another funding source for that. Then I have a couple more slides for the general fund, which is your largest operating fund, and then I'll move on to the remaining funds, or a couple of the other funds for the district. The general fund revenues, we've got a slide here where we show budget to actual to prior year. What I've noticed here this past year, noted in my comments for you, is that total revenues for your organization amounted to $271.8 million this year. So you can see being a large district in the metro area by the size of the operation, coming very close to what was anticipated in the budget, coming in favorably, as I'd say, over budget, within 1%, so 0.9% over budget of what was anticipated in that final budget, and an increase of about 3.1% over the prior year. That increase would include formula increases on the basic formula allowance, as well as the increase in students that you served this past year. The other comment I like to make with this graph is you can see the reliance our schools in Minnesota have on the state of Minnesota for funding. Your revenues in the general fund for state sources totaled about 70% this past year, and that was followed by your taxes at 24%. So you can see the vast majority of your revenues right in those two sources of funding. And then my last slide for the general fund, we look at the opposite side with the expenditures. Similar with budget to actual to prior year, this past year, your expenditures totaled $263 million in the general fund. The district was able to manage the expenditures within the approved budget, coming in about 2.1% under what was anticipated in that final adopted budget, and about 0.4% less than the prior year. And again, I know I've shared this with the board members in the past, but you can see in educating your students, the majority of the dollars to do that are within those salary and employee benefit categories, making up about 78% of the general fund spending in 2022. I have just one slide for a couple of your other operating funds, the food service and the community service funds. So with a district of your size, I wouldn't say they're small operations, but in relation to the general fund, The food service expenditures amounted to about $11.3 million this past year. The community service expenditures were about $12.8 million. You can see this past year, each one of these funds saw an improved total fund balance, with the food service fund increasing. There was some improvements in federal funding this past year in 2022, and then an increase in participations, which we saw in many of our school districts. The community service special revenue fund, you can see an improved fund balance getting to about 7.5% of their annual expenditures this past year. You may have noticed we did note in the management report there are several buckets that you work from within the community service operation, and want to make sure you're watching those moving forward as well to get them all in a positive position, the fund balance within there. And then just a couple of more slides that I'll get through here. The internal service fund, as you can see, the level of activity is drastically less than you see in the other operations we've commented on to this point. The district has utilized the internal service funds the last few years for the GASB 16 and 73 obligations of the district, which are related to compensated absences, as well as a local pension that the district allows for. This will be something we'll have to discuss moving forward, how you want to finance that, if there needs to be contributions that go to the internal service fund, or if this is something you may want to present differently within the general fund, or how to move forward with that. And then I guess I get to the last slide, which becomes the most complicated to talk about. So I wear you out with all the information to this point, and then we try to look at it at a district-wide perspective. So the previous slides that I've shared with you, we focus on how we believe the district is operating on a day-to-day basis on that fund level, looking at the general fund, the individual funds, and how the budget is adopted. The current reporting model includes a dual perspective. That fund-based presentation really is looking at short-term or current financial resources. So you'll notice if you look at your general fund, there are not capital assets included. There's not long-term obligations. So it's focusing on what's that net available dollars to put into the classroom and to use for your current goals. The entity-wide presentation then gives us that opportunity to look on a consolidated basis, including all of the funds of the district, and then capturing that long-term perspective with capital assets and then long-term obligations, including the pensions for the overall organization. And true to accountants here, we've provided you a breakdown in two different manners on one slide here. So the top half, we look at that net position, where we move from the governmental funds that we just talked about and what makes it different to the entity-wide governmental activities. And then the lower half, we show that same total amount, but split between the components of the equity, or that net position of the entity-wide financial statements. So you can see overall as an organization, you saw an improvement or an increase in total net position. A significant portion of your organization is tied up in infrastructure, as you can see, buildings and the investment in the capital assets of the organization. And not unusual for school districts. You can see an increase there. And to me, what that's telling me is that you're paying down your debt related to those capital assets at a faster pace than they're being depreciated, or you're investing into those buildings at a faster pace than that depreciation. So while it's nice to see an increase, it doesn't mean you have more liquid resources to be able to put into the classroom, because it's tied up in the capital assets of your organization. The restricted category, you can see there's an increase this past year. I hit upon a couple of those with the increase in the food service fund, the community service fund, making up a part of that. The capital restrictions for LTFM or operating capital also contributed to that. And then everything else is a catch-all into the unrestricted. So you can see an increase of about $16.8 million this past year. That is capturing the general fund unrestricted operating results. And then we also saw an improvement in the net position of the statewide pension plans, which are largely out of your control, but you have to put a portion on your financial statements. So with that change, that then fell to that unrestricted component. So with that, I know I kind of got to pick what we talked about with the presentation, but I know there's a lot of information within that annual report, the special purpose report and the management report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is really very interesting. I did have a couple questions. One is you had talked a little bit to the gap between what we define as a general fund using MDE's guidance versus what your auditing firm has delineated. And can you talk to why we treat them different in different circumstances?
And I might have to alter our presentation to incorporate that graph just so it's for the full community, but you can see it. I know you had the ability to see it in the management report. So we include both because we want to give you kind of the full picture of some other calculations with unrestricted, unassigned. Policies differ by districts. So in our management report, we kind of want to have a consistent, this is how we're presenting it. And I believe the state does that too. They've defined what is a statutory operating debt and looking at if you were negative 2.5%. I believe the logic behind how they do their calculation and backing off is your expenditures could really be skewed from year to year if you were banking up dollars for capital needs and then you had a large expense one year, that percent would really become skewed from year to year based on that outflow. So they exclude some of those components of restricted dollars and do a calculation for the unassigned. That's how I believe is the large reasoning for that. And what I see with my districts, they'll do variations of that. Maybe they'll use unassigned expenditures and so on. So I like the move the district made in terms of it allows for us to look at a state calculated report for that and pull that number and it's really calculated by the MD and not much you can do about it.
My other question was, you mentioned at the start that there's a new standard that requires us to treat our rent payments now or our leases now differently than what we had been treating them sort of effectively as rent, and now we have to treat them differently. And so that's reflected on our numbers here. Is that can you talk about, any impact that we should be expecting from that kind of change, or is that something that we would be, it's just the same, it's just kind of it's just kind of neutral once the books all shake out?
Sure. I guess from the bottom line on your fund-based statements, the expenditures still flow through at the same pace. It's based on their payment timing. What it does is show a capture of a capital asset on the entity-wide financial statement that never existed before and a related obligation for future lease payments. So the previous standard allowed two presentations for leases. They'd be capital leases, ones that you believed you'd essentially own the asset was the common case. And others, the typical would be maybe it's temporary use of space and you'd simply record an expense and disclose that you had future payments for space or buses was a common one that your district utilized in the past. Now the GASB is requiring there's only one choice, it's just leases. And so as long as it's over 1 year, it becomes an asset and the right to use that asset for a certain amount of time. And so in the past, it would go through your books as an expense, an operating expense. Now it still goes through an expense, but now it's split as a principal and an interest payment on that related debt, lease debt.
And so we do that with all of our, so like a copier that we lease, because the lease on a copier is longer than 1 year, then we have to subdivide that into principal plus interest, and then that's how we have to account for it.
That's how it will roll through the financial statements, assuming it's material. There are some things we've noticed with districts, if they have one postage meter, it probably isn't material and worth the effort to capitalize it, but anything material then gets captured that way, and over 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
We got a little ahead of ourselves, but I'm going to ask this and then I'll ask if anybody else has any questions. Can I get a motion to approve the 21-22 Comprehensive Financials Special Purpose and Management Report?
So moved. Oh, second.
Moved by Katie and second by Simi. Now, is there any more discussion? Sorry. That's okay. Any other questions for Dan and his? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Simi's our financial guru. All right. Next is 8.2, and that is proposed policy changes, and that will be presented by our superintendent, Julie Nielsen.
We are in the routine with policy reviews, and if you recall, January 5th, these policies came forward for a first reading. Included in this round of policies were 7 200 series policies, along with 610 field trips and 613 graduation requirements. With the exception of field trips that had some legal changes, the others had minimal to no changes. So this evening, I am asking for approval on policy 208, 210, 211, 212, 213, 14, 15, 610, as I said, field trips, and 613 graduation requirements.
Thank you, Julie. Can I get a motion to approve the policy changes?
So move.
Moved by Pat, second by Eric. Is that correct? Okay. Is there any discussion? Comments? Concerns? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next is 8.3, school assignments. That will be presented this evening by myself. A discussion was held at the workshop meeting on January 5th to decide if we wanted to continue having board members represent individual schools or not. Tonight, we will vote in discontinuing individual board members being assigned to specific schools. May I get a motion to discontinue school assignments?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Katie, second by Melinda. Are there any further discussions, comments, concerns?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
comment. Number one, a thank you to, I know the district staff has made a real point of being in our schools and being present in our schools, and I know that is valued and appreciated. And when I take a look at the large number of schools we have, 24 across our district, I have appreciated having that assignment because it allows me to focus in an area.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Like I said in the workshop meeting, I think it would be helpful to have, principals or whoever put activities or where they expect, or where they would appreciate board member or other community support to come in. And I know I've been invited to Student of the Month events or, rallies or whatever. And it's honestly, it's a great opportunity to be out in the schools and, understanding that this is, moving away from having assignments means that would no longer, the principal would no longer invite, me specifically. It would be helpful to have that as a board so that we can make sure that we are out and supporting our schools.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with that. If Julie, if you could, whenever there's something where they really want a board member there, that they send us a general email to all of us.
And Dana and I have spoke just briefly, waiting for the board to make any final decisions, but the thinking would be that we would send an email out, or Dana would send an email out asking for an opportunity, one opportunity from now until the end of the year where board members could go, participate in an event, be active, but get a feel for the school and connect with kids. And so whatever the board's decision, we will certainly work on communication and then provide those dates to all of you as board members.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Thank you all for your comments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Okay.
Can you clarify?
I forgot where I was for a moment.
The board. Chair Van Leer, can you clarify who the nays were? Louise? And Simi, thank you.
And Simi? Yeah, she said it. Okay. 8.4 is board committees that also will be presented by myself. Each year, board members are assigned internal and external committees. A list of assignments were sent out to all board members. As of tonight, I have not heard back from any members who object to their assignments. If you do, you can still call me. So, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Simi,
Second.
second by Louise. Any discussion?
I do have one comment or concern.
Yes, ma'am.
Previously, we have only had 2 board members, because when we do get 3 board members, if another board member wants to go because maybe they have a child that they want to go as a parent, now we have 4 board members at an event. For instance, like special education, if I wasn't on it and I wanted to go because there was some interest for a topic, if there was some interest in a topic, I would want to be able to attend, and I would not want to be the 4th board member. So the only thing I am requesting is maybe we drop one person from the ones that are advisory committees. I think policy review and personnel should have 3, but right now we have special ed advisory that has 3, district ambassador has 3, curriculum advisory has 3, citizens finance has 3, community ed advisory has 3, and I believe those should only have 2.
Okay, so what you're saying is that each committee should only have 2 people on it?
Except for policy and personnel, because those ones would not commend themselves to have a person just drop into those meetings, but any advisory ones should only have 2.
So I guess I've been on CFAC now for I don't know how many years, but I don't think I've ever had a board member other than the assigned board member drop in. And I don't know how frequently that happens with these committees. What I like about having 3 is that there's always backfill in case 1 or 2 people can't make it, that there's always somebody who's present, or, board members can split it up accordingly, according to their schedule. I can't make CFAC this month, but Louise is there as backfill or whatever, which is why I like having 3 there. And I think, the more we can have as potential ears, the better. I hear your point about having a 4th person, and I think in that case, I'm presuming that could just be addressed ahead of time with someone saying, hey, I want to go as a parent. Can I take someone's spot this month, or can someone not go?
What we've done in the past is there used to be 1 board member and 1 backup, and that's really what it was. I mean, if we want to keep, because it did actually happen with curriculum, where 4 board members showed up because it was something that everybody wanted to, and I think there was, 4 or 5 actually at the meeting, and it was something that the board would eventually vote on. So board members had to be asked to leave. So it can happen. Does it happen often? No, but I would not want to see it happen, so I don't know if we want to list the first 2 are on the committee and the 3rd is a backup, and if, just let's say community ed advisory, if Louise and Sharon, if one of them can't be there, I'm the 3rd one on that list, they would contact me and say, hey, can you go because I can't come? I just really don't want a board member that has an interest in being there because of a child or something that is very near and dear to their heart being asked to leave, because we end up with 2 board members and they will end up discussing something that is possibly going to be voted on.
Yeah, and I think what I did is the first persons who are listed at the top, I think that was their first choice. And so the other person, the very last person who was on this list, is just a filler. So unless that person gets a call or is notified, they don't have to attend. I think that's where we'll leave it. Is that suitable?
Well, we would have to vote this down, vote to amend, and have them listed on the thing as a, because it wasn't listed that way.
Right.
So we can't, we'd have to, if this would get voted down, then we could change it and say, okay, the 3rd person listed is a backup, and it would be then on the website as a backup. But if this passes, then it stays as is, and there's 3, and there is a potential that somebody could be.
So we could vote it down and then just do an amendment to this document.
Yes, that would be the only way we could change it, and have the 3rd person listed as a backup on everything but personnel and policy review, because those do need 3.
Okay. Looking at the the assignments, has everyone that it listed like 1 and 2, is that your preference? Shake your head so I know what's going on. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Louise?
My preferences are, sorry. My preferences are fine. I am going to have some conflicts with the community ed.
Okay.
That meets on the same night I teach for UW River Falls. So depending on, those are 4 more random kind of days, but they're on Tuesdays. So it might be better if I'm the alternate on that one.
Okay.
So, yeah, one thing I was going to say is that we may want to, I don't know, like take a minute and figure out, because to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity of being the primary or the alternate, because I don't know that it's quite equalized this way. I can't really tell looking at this if everyone has the same number of primary and alternate slots.
Don't know that it matters that we have the same number if we don't want I mean, if I only wanted to be on 2, I'm fine with only being on 2. If I want to be on all 8, I could say I want to be on all 8, but I don't think we can necessarily say everybody has to have 4 or 5 or 3.
I think also to remember the external
Right, we
committees
also
as
have the
well, and they have different time requirements as well.
Yes. So you want to vote on this, and whatever the outcome is, if you vote it down, then we amend it as Katie said. And Katie, you will repeat that.
I would.
Okay.
Can I just ask another question? Clarifying, so we're talking just about the advisory committees.
This ends in June.
How many, I mean, is just one board member at an advisory committee meeting sufficient, or do we want 2
Yes.
board? Because the way I saw it is I kind of liked that you had 3 people on there and thinking we could alternate them.
Yeah,
Because we all have so many responsibilities and, jobs on top of it. Where like 1 month this person goes, 1 month this person goes.
But you could,
And you could still do
do that.
that, even if you list it this way, you can
Yeah, if
still
we keep
work
the third
together
goal.
to do it, but the problem is, the good thing about having that person listed as a backup is they may not attend unless they know that they're supposed to attend, and then if another board member steps in because of any reason, then there's less likelihood of 4 being there.
I guess I just don't know that we need to memorialize that. Like, why can't that just be a thing?
it will be a
Right,
thing. Yeah. Isn't that
I
right?
mean, I guess, no, but I mean, I don't know why it needs to be memorialized differently. Maybe I just don't understand.
Okay, since we got the question, okay, we're going to vote on this, and then we'll see what happens, and then we'll move on. Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No?
Okay, well, the motion carries. We're not going to change it. Okay. I just love y'all. Okay. Next is 9.0, our superintendent's report.
Thank you. First, to start out with, we have been out, and I say we, our executive cabinet, every opportunity that we have to talk about our school district, we really are working on that communication. I'm amazed at what people don't know about South Washington County Schools. This morning I did a presentation for the Woodbury Rotary. Last week I did one for the Woodbury Chamber, and really it's just to tell our story. And I think even when we meet with the kids, to realize that we're 16 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 3 big high schools, because everybody kind of lives in their own little world. And so things like we're the 6th largest school district. 6th largest? Really? People compare us to Hudson and Hastings and River Falls, and we're not close to those school districts. We talked today, the 2nd largest employer that South Washington County Schools was behind, and of course, kids, what did someone say today at Ambassadors? Behind 3M, and I said, and I think the student felt kind of badly like they got it wrong, and I said, just so you know, the Woodbury Rotary, those members said 3M as well. It's Anderson by renewal. And I'm just trying to share just a little bit of what we're talking about. We also talk about the demographics of the district, but that since 2017, our free and reduced lunches have gone from 17% to 25%. So who we are as a district, who our students are, really makes up how we respond and what we do. So really some great informational meetings with both the Rotary and the Woodbury Chamber. Our board is aware, but we are continuing on the classroom to boardroom strategic planning. February 4th, we will have a lovely Saturday session with coffee. I hope it's not snowy outside, but we are getting close to the board doing their work with our strategic plan. And also tomorrow evening, we have the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce Gala celebration, party dresses and cocktail dresses, and I'm not sure what I'm wearing yet tomorrow. But we will be recognizing and honoring Joan Holper. Joan is a second grade teacher at Red Rock Elementary School, and she was awarded the Educator of the Year. And so we have a table full. I know Dr. Brookins in the back will be joining me with his tuxedo and tie, or not sure, his bow tie. And so we will be there tomorrow evening celebrating with Joan, the principal, as well as her family members. And then finally, just a little bit about snow days. In the family news today, there were winter weather decisions and how those winter weather decisions are made. First of all, there's never going to be a right answer for everybody. Secondly, we will always do our best to prepare our students for what's ahead. So in yesterday's case, that did mean that devices went home with students. You know, prior to that, we hadn't really talked about elementary devices. We knew that students had choice boards. It got back to me through some social media outlets that there was criticism that administration was now sending devices home and we were not going to have school. The sending of devices home does not mean that there's not school. It just means that in the event that we're not able to have school, that our students are prepared to carry on the learning at home. And so, you know, our morning routine looks very much like wake up at 3:50. We are typically on call with National Weather Service. Carrie Olson, our Director of Transportation, she many times calls directly to the Weather Service. If we have a webinar in, we'll ask specifically about Woodbury, Cottage Grove, St. Paul Park, and Newport. So we are zoning in right on our community. And the last ice storm, you would have noticed that the northern part, there was very little ice, and we were hit really, really hard. As a matter of fact, the city of Cottage Grove said it was the worst, I think it was Dan said 2019 or 2017 in terms of the storm. So the decision to close school, delay school, is not a collaboration with superintendents across the entire metro. I don't talk to West Metro, I don't talk to Northern Metro. I may talk to the Hastings superintendent because we also use the Hastings contracted school buses. But a lot goes into this decision. We have people out driving the roads, actually on the roads, going through the roundabouts. And our goal is to make sure that our school buses can safely transport students. At the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. And so please, families, if you're listening to this, please make sure you read the winter weather decisions. And if you ever have questions, don't hesitate to call.
Okay. Next is 10.0, and that is our future meeting dates. We have a school board workshop meeting on February 2nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. and a business meeting on February, I think that's backwards. It's right. Yeah. Business meeting on February 16th, 2023. Both are at 6 p.m. and both meetings will be held at the District Service Center. Finally, it is 11.0 and that we are adjourned.